I'm going to make this short video here, and the title of it, Science Doesn't Prove Evolution, It Points to Creation. And it's very important that you understand that, and that's what I'm going to go through hopefully in the next 10 minutes. Well, the problem we had with science was Lyell, and he was a lawyer, and he didn't like the conclusion that the geologists validated the truth of uh, Noah's flood. So he had a quote that said, I wanted to separate science from Moses, but he wanted to disprove the flood. And he was a lawyer, he wasn't a geologist, and he just used rhetoric as lawyers do to try to disprove the flood. And he wrote a couple of books. And anyway, he really didn't have any science involved. Darwin loved his books and took him along on his voyage, his famous voyage. He wasn't a scientist either, and he really didn't like science. His family said he was a great storyteller, and he claimed to have done a lot of work in science, but all I can find is he had a bud collection and he liked worms and liked to tell stories, but not much more. And anyway, he wrote his book, and it wasn't really liked by the London Zoological Society. They said it wasn't science, and actually it's materialistic story, and it goes back all the way back to the Hindus and the ancient Egyptians. Well, anyway, there was a huge paradigm shift, is what I call it, and paradigms are assumptions, and there's various paradigms in science. And the assumption, and for a big change in science is really a big deal, and you couldn't do it today because every time you do anything, they'll say it goes against the paradigm, and paradigms are basically assumptions. And what happened is Charles Darwin's created a theory of evolution. He is also a high-level Freemason, meaning he quietly worshiped Lucifer. Conclusion, the theory of evolution was created by a high-level Satanist. And I think it originally came from Satan back after creation and get people to not believe in God. But the good thing for Darwin was the people from the leadership in the Church of England were high-level Freemason too. Actually, the Freemasons got affected by the Jesuits, who were from part of the Catholic Church, but they weren't really Christians either. And a lot of Freemasons are Christians today, but they just are not high level. Once you get into the high level, you have to do some strange things, and they hold it against you. And anyway, well, the Church of England ran the universities in England, and they got all the evolution stories being taught as science in the university in England. And Germany, they loved the story, and so they automatically just put it into their universities. And it was a very bad idea because it wasn't science, and that caused the paradigm shift, putting it in there, and everybody started believing it. All the scientists at the time didn't believe it, and they were against it, but their words weren't listened to, and slowly after 2 or 3 generations, everybody thought it was settled science. Well, it can never be settled science when you have a past event. It can be a metaphysical assumption, how it all started and how it all went. It's not science. So anyway, today we have a verse from Proverbs 8, verse 18, verse 17. The first to present his case seems right till another comes forward and questions him. And nobody's questioning evolution today, but I'm going to ask a few questions about evolution in the next few minutes. First of all, they claim that science proves evolution. Sounds convincing. Until the basic laws of science are looked at closely, let's start at something simple. The first law of thermodynamics, the laws of thermodynamics are the most proved laws in science. And anyway, they have been validated and never been proven wrong. But anyway, the first law of thermodynamics is energy cannot create itself. Energy must come from somewhere. In other words, the universe could not make itself out of nothing. Something outside the universe had to cause it. And so energy cannot be created, and it cannot be destroyed. It's eternal. But as we'll learn, the second law of thermodynamics says that it's always moving to a less usable state. And so the presence of energy in the universe tells us that there had to be a creator God who had the energy to put into the universe. And the first law of dynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes forms or be transformed from one object to another. So it's just totally getting worse. It's not getting better unless God's plugging more energy into the universe, which I think he might be. Now consider the second law of thermodynamics. I talked a little bit about it, that energy is always moving to a natural state, but there's another part of it, and this law shows that things naturally fall apart over time. A clean room becomes messy. A new car wears out. Broken things do not fix themselves. Nature moves towards disorder, not greater organization. Yet evolution teaches that life became more and more complex on its own without guidance. This goes against what we observe happening every day. And this is a law that things just don't go from disorder to order, even with mutations. Mutations make them more disorderly. They don't make it better. And so this evolution goes against both the first and second law of thermodynamics. Biology creates a bigger question. The law of biogenesis, demonstrated by Louis Pasteur, showed that life only comes from existing life. Life does not appear from dead chemicals. You can leave food out, but it will rot. It will not turn into a living creature, yet evolution depends on life somehow beginning from non-living matter. And of course, this goes against the second law of thermodynamics again. And Louis Pasteur was around the time of Darwin, and a lot of people started to believe that life could come from non-life, including Darwin himself. He didn't write about it, but he went around and proved all their ideas wrong. And it's never been observed that life can come from non-life. And evolutionists says, so they call it the law of abiogenesis. There is no law. It's never been observed. It's an assumption. It's an outrageous hypothesis at best. The information problem, and we posit that life requires complex genetic information. We argue that while chemicals can react, they cannot organize themselves into a functional DNA code without an intelligent source. And DNA is amazingly full of information. It does amazing things. We're learning more about it all the time. It programs the molecular machines in um, the cells, and it does all kinds of things. It communicates with other cells, and it's just information, and information only comes from intelligence, and that's a hard thing to understand for evolutionists. God as pre-existing life, to resolve the chicken and egg dilemma of where life first came from, they identify God as the eternal, necessary, pre-existing life that satisfies the law's requirement. So God is the light of the world. He's the life of the world. And he brought the energy in, he brought life in, and he's the best explanation. We believe DNA information is evidence of an intellectual design, intelligent design, God, rather than a product of random, unguided processes. They argue that the complex, functional, and encoded instructions in DNA requires an intelligent source, as random mutations cannot create new, complex information. This viewpoint emphasizes that life cannot come from non-life, and DNA cannot come together by itself, and our eyes could not come together by itself, and our ears could not come together, our brain, our internal organs, our skin couldn't come together by itself. And they say, well, other animals have it, but that's not an excuse. The fossil record also raises serious question. If the evolution happened slowly over millions of years, we would find countless transitional fossils showing small changes step by step. And that's what Darwin expected to find. Slowly an arm would be forming as you go up through the evolution ladder. Instead, we see complex creatures appearing suddenly and fully formed. One of the clearest examples is the Cambrian explosion, when many major types of animals appeared suddenly in the rock layers without clear ancestors below them. That does not look like slow, gradual change. So actually, the fossil record represents a catastrophic event that happened about 4,500 years ago that the Bible calls the flood of Noah, that Lyell tried to disprove. So once Lyell said it wasn't that way, they had to come up and say, oh, this is evidence and this is all here. Well, the Cambrian explosion ruins that. There's no transitional forms, and they try to find transitional forms, but they aren't really transitional forms. They just see a fish, and then they see something kind of halfway in between, and then they see a lizard. Well, that's not a transitional form. We don't have any evidence of slow change. They're just different beings in different places. The universe order and design as a result of a deliberate supernatural act by an intelligent creator, God, rather than undirected, random, natural processes. The immense complexity, fine-tuned physical laws, and the informational content in the universe are evidence of the design mind. And the early scientists were Christians in the modern era, and they thought they were learning more about God. When they made a new literal Bible, and they said, well, maybe God did create things, because they thought no reason to investigate it. If it all fell together, you're not going to find any order. But they found amazing order, and they said this is evidence of God. And Romans 1:20 says his nature is revealed in there. And they said, hey, these are mathematical. God is mathematical. Great laws. God is great. And he's a designing mind behind everything. So I went through a lot of different things. Actually, I could go for 3 hours easy on this, but I just want to give you the other side of the story, that they should have stuck with the old paradigm. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, rather than the new paradigm. In the beginning, time plus chance created everything, and that just is not true. It just goes against science. Science points to, in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. This is my final quote from Fred Hoyle. A common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a superintelligent has monkeyed with physics as well as chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces we're speaking about in nature. The number one calculates from the facts seem to me so overwhelming as to put this question beyond conclusion beyond question. So that's it. The obvious evidence points to in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and all this just couldn't come together by time and plus chance.